There are a few things. The most relevant one is the decision depth, which means you've been running several years of sort of partial rollouts or temporary workarounds that you built into the company, and that sort of never died, so it's still alive and kicking inside of the company, which means that leaders today need to sort of change while flying. Another one is now with all the new tech, is the ownership fog. There's not one single responsibility. Tech goes across all of the organization, so everyone is involved, but no one is accountable. And we see that a lot. People talk about having, a RACI, but in practice they don't operate it. And I think the last biggest barrier is the change of how you look on time, sort of competing clocks. Tech is now doing things on weekly deliveries. Leadership changes is on a quarterly basis. Finance is working with monthly targets, and we're going to see effects on that. So these competing clocks, I think, is another big barrier. I would say those are the three main items for 2026. I think it ties back to the first three, which is the time expectations. Now people expect time to value in weeks, not in 12-month cycles or quarterly cycles. So you often hear like, show me the adoption increase in 90 days from start of a project. That's sort of becoming the new normal. I also do think that the digital maturity is very uneven inside of businesses. So once C-level people or management has realized, okay, we need to change, they get excited about that change. They've already been on a journey to sort of evaluate that. And when it hits other parts of the organization, then they are not there yet, which means that you have a challenge to sort of align internally and get people on board on the excitement or the need for change or the competence built, because it's very uneven inside of the business. That speed of tech means that maturity shift is happening. Some are well ahead or on par, and some are really far behind and feel also left behind. So it's important when you run the organization to try to get everyone involved and aligned. Okay, first, why so many CRM installations fail. I'm not so sure that we see that too often. We do see challenges and we do see failures, but it comes down to it's painful to change any system, and especially when we're going into CRM, which is in the heart of the organization. And the most common reasons is scope creep. That's a combination of project management from the vendor, but also stakeholder alignment internally and how they set up for the project. It's also role confusion, I would say, within the CRM projects where it's unclear roles, who's taking the decisions, who has the final sign-off. And it's the whole data depth, meaning that if the data is poor, it doesn't matter if you migrate it to a new system, the data is going to be equally poor. And at the end it becomes, if let's say it's a global company you roll out and there's sort of a change fatigue in a project that a lot of people got sort of initial excitement wears off. So you need to have a very strong process to make sure that it's going to be sort of a hard, fast change instead of a slow and steady pace, because then the change fatigue plays in. You should really keep it only to three main gates. Like the first one is go live. Second one, within maybe 30-45 days, is say, okay, show me the adoption, that people are starting to use it. And the third one would be that, okay, now we have, a running cadence or a drum beat going on, which means that you have an ownership of the process. So go live. I would say then it is adoption, and then you have a true owner who runs it internally. Those are the winning formula to make it happen. Yes, so I would say that speed rewards clarity. I mean, in order to have speed, you need to be very clear on your initial target, how quick you escalate, how clean the escalations are, for instance, the short feedback loop, the involvement of key individuals early on in the project, not late on, because that's normally when the changes are then addressed. I think also governance, normally it's set up more like committees and reporting, but it should be much more sort of traffic light feeling. And also I think great leadership, they kill poor projects quickly. Like, don't keep them running, rather go for adoption focus. That's when you know that the projects are becoming successful. And I would say tech is really only 20%. The human piece is 80% of those projects. I mean, we've seen some really strong CRM platforms, world-class platforms really underperform because I think the change was under-led, and the change management piece comes back not to the tech problem, but it's the mechanism that you need to have to sort of define which principle are we going to use, what does the process look like, and which templates are we using to get people across the board as quickly as possible. You need to make that change land in people's minds. I think what's great with Hyperchange is the people behind it has been working in some of these world-class CRM systems, and they built a whole tool set of all of that, both the principles and the processes and the templates. And that's sort of the best of the best, how they managed to do that really quickly. The whole idea between Hyperchange is really to turn these complex CRMs into sort of adopted business outcome. Really focus on the outcome. What are you trying to accomplish by shifting your CRM? And how is that set up in terms of a business case, in executive alignment, in sign-off, and in sort of governance structure. And that should be looked upon, as I said before, like what's going to happen after 90 days. I wish I could explain it maybe better, but I would say that it really comes back to that whole methodology. And that's a lived methodology that we actually walk through to see how do you take sort of a world-class CRM system that's not delivery, where you have a big tech debt, several point-to-point solutions that needs to be addressed. Take that through a journey within half a year or slightly above half a year. Increase the adoption, reduce the total cost of ownership by just applying the principles that I talked about before, but also applying the 6 process steps that we're using in Hyperchange Network and the various templates to make that work. I think it's really to enable everyone involved in such a project to understand which metrics do we need to surface early on to make sure that we hit all of these targets. And I must say that whole tool set that's set up is working. And change is difficult, so it also to do it with people who have done it before and who have lived through it. I think that's super relevant.